Sienna God, hello all. Oshta, afternoon, good afternoon, Wado. Thank you for watching. So this is day 2, part B of reading Many Lives, Many Masters, a timeless classic, the true story of a prominent psychiatrist, his young patient, and their past life therapy that changed both their lives by Brian L. Weiss, MD. I felt the need to apply the scientific method, which I had rigorously used over the past 15 years of my research to evaluate this most unusual material emerging from Catherine's lips. Between sessions, Catherine herself was becoming increasingly more psychic. She had intuitions about people and events that proved to be true. During the hypnosis, she had begun to anticipate my questions before I had a chance to ask them. Many of her dreams had a precognitive or foretelling bent. On one occasion, when her parents came to visit her, her father expressed tremendous doubt about what was happening. To prove to him that it was true, she took him to the racetrack. There, right before his eyes, she proceeded to pick the winner of every race. He was stunned. Once she knew that she had proved her point, she took all of the money that she had won and gave it to the first poor street person she met on her way out of the track. She intuitively felt that the new spiritual powers she had gained should not be used for financial reward. For her, they had a much higher meaning. She told me that this experience was a little frightening to her, but she was so pleased with the progress she had made that she was eager to continue with the regressions. I was both shocked and fascinated by her psychic abilities, especially the episode at the racetrack. This was tangible proof. She had the winning ticket to every race. This was no coincidence. Something very odd was happening over these past several weeks. I struggled to keep my perspective. I could not deny her psychic abilities, and if these abilities were real and could produce tangible proofs, could her recitations of past life events also be true? Now she returned to the lifetime in which she had just been born. This incarnation seemed to be more recent, but she could not identify a year. Her name was Elizabeth. In quotes, I'm older now, with a brother and 2 sisters. I see the dinner table. My father is there. He is Edward, in brackets, the pediatrician back for an encore performance as her father, in brackets. So I guess he was her father twice in different past lives. My mother and father are fighting again. The food is potatoes and beans. He's mad because the food is cold. They fight a lot. He's always drinking. He hits my mother. In brackets, Catherine's voice was frightened and she was trembling visibly. He pushes the kids. He's not like he was before. Not the same person. I don't like him. I wish he would go away, end quote. She was speaking as a child would speak. My questioning of her during these sessions was certainly very different from what I used in conventional psychotherapy. I acted more as a guide with Catherine, trying to review an entire lifetime in an hour or two, searching for traumatic events and harmful patterns that might explain her current day symptoms. Conventional therapy is conducted at a much more detailed and leisurely pace. Every word chosen by the patient is analyzed for nuances and hidden meanings. Every facial gesture, every bodily movement, every inflection of the voice is considered and evaluated. Every emotional reaction is carefully scrutinized. Behavior patterns are painstakingly pieced together. With Catherine, however, years could whir by in minutes. Catherine's sessions were like driving the Indy 500 at full throttle and trying to pick up our faces and trying to pick out faces in the crowd. I returned my attention to Catherine and asked her to advance in time. In quotes, I'm married now. Our house has one big room. My husband has blonde hair. I don't know him. In brackets, that is, he has not appeared in Catherine's present lifetime. We have no children yet. He is very nice to me. We love each other and we're happy, end quote. Apparently, she had successfully escaped from the oppression in her parental home. I asked if she could identify the area in which she lived. Brennington, and is what she said in quotes, with a question mark. Catherine whispered hesitantly, in quotes, I see books with funny old covers, the big ones with a strap. It's the Bible. There are big fancy letters, Gaelic language, end quote. Here she said some words I could not identify. Whether they were Gaelic or not, I have no idea. End quote. We live inland, not near the sea. County, Brennington. I see a farm with pigs and lambs. This is our farm, end quote. She had gone ahead in time. In quotes, we have 2 boys. The older is getting married. I can see the church steeple. a very old stone building, end quote. Suddenly her head hurt and Catherine was in pain, clutching her left temple area. She reported that she had fallen on the stone steps, but she recovered. She died of old age in her bed at home with her family around. She again floated out of her body after her death, but this time she was not perplexed or confused. End quote. I am aware of a bright light. It's wonderful. You get energy from this light, end quote. She was resting after death in between lifetimes. Minutes passed in silence. Suddenly she spoke, but not in the slow whisper she had always used previously. Her voice was now husky and loud without hesitation. End quote. Our task is to learn, to become godlike through knowledge. We know so little. You are here to be my teacher. I have so much to learn. By knowledge, we approach God, and then we can rest. Then we come back to teach and help others, end quote. I was speechless. Here was a lesson from after her death, from the in-between state. What was the source of this material? This did not sound at all like Catherine. She had never spoken like this, using these words, this phraseology. Even the tone of her voice was totally different. At that moment, I did not realize that although Catherine had uttered the words, she had not originated the thoughts. She was relaying what was being said to her. She later identified the masters, highly evolved souls, not presently in body, as the source. They could speak to me through her. Not only could Catherine be regressed to past lifetimes, but now she could channel knowledge from the beyond. Beautiful knowledge. I struggled to retain my objectivity. A new dimension had been introduced. Catherine had never read the studies of Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Kubler, or Dr. Raymond Moody, who have been both written about the near-death experiences. She had never heard of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, yet she was relating similar experiences to those described in these writings. This was a proof of sorts. If only there were more facts, more tangible details I could verify. My skepticism fluctuated yet remained. Maybe she had read about near-death research in a magazine article or had seen an interview on a television show. Although she denied any conscious remembrance of such an article or show, perhaps she retained a subconscious memory, but she went beyond these previous writings and transmitted a message back from this in-between state. If only I had more facts. After she awakened, Catherine remembered the details of her past lives as always. However, she could not remember anything that happened after her death as Elizabeth. In the future, she would never remember any details of the in-between states. She could only remember the lifetimes. End quote. By knowledge, we approach God, end quote. We were on our way. Chapter 4. End quote. I see a square white house with a sandy road in front. People on horses are going back and forth, end quote. Catherine was speaking in her usual dreamy whisper. End quote. There are trees, a plantation, a big house with a bunch of smaller houses like slave houses. It's very hot. It's in the South. Virginia? End quote. She thought the date was 1873. She was a child. End quote. There are horses and lots of crops, corn, tobacco. End quote. She and the other servants ate in a kitchen of the big house. She was black and her name was Abby. She felt a foreboding and her body tensed. The main house was on fire, and she watched it burn down. I progressed her 15 years in time to 1888. End quote. I'm wearing an old dress, cleaning a mirror on the second floor of a house, a brick house with windows, with lots of panes. The mirror is wavy, not straight, and it has knobs on the end. The man who owns the house is named James Manson. He has a funny coat with 3 buttons and a big black collar. He has a beard. I don't recognize him, in brackets, as someone in Catherine's present lifetime. He treats me well. I live in a house on the property. I clean the rooms. There is a schoolhouse on the property, but I'm not allowed in the school. I make butter too, end quote. Catherine was whispering slowly, using very simple terms and paying great attention to detail. Over the next 5 minutes, I learned how to make butter. Abby's knowledge of churning butter was new to Catherine too. I moved her head ahead in time. In quotes, I am with somebody, but I don't think we are married. We sleep together, but we don't always live together. I feel okay about him, but nothing special. I don't see any children. There are apple trees and ducks. Other people are in the distance, are picking apples. Something is making my eyes itch, end quote. Catherine was grimacing with her eyes closed. In quotes, it's the smoke. The wind is blowing this way. The smoke from burning wood. They're burning up wooden barrels, end quote. She was coughing now. In quotes, it happens a lot. They're making the inside of the barrels black tar to waterproof, end quote. After the excitement of last week's session, I was eager to reach the in-between state again. We had already spent 90 minutes exploring her lifetime as a servant. I had learned about bedspreads, butter, and barrels. I was hungry for a more spiritual lesson. Forsaken my patience, I advanced her to her death. End quotes. It's hard to breathe. My chest hurts so much, end quote. Catherine was gasping in obvious pain. End quote. My heart hurts. It's beating fast. I'm so cold. My body's shaking, end quote. Catherine began to shiver. End quotes. People are in the room giving me leaves to drink, in brackets, a tea. It smells funny. They're rubbing a liniment on my chest. Fever, but I feel very cold, end quote. She quietly died. Floating up to the ceiling, she could see her body in the bed, a small, shriveled woman in her 60s. She was just floating, waiting for someone to come and help her. She became aware of a light, feeling herself drawn to it. The light was becoming brighter and more luminous. We waited in silence as minutes slowly passed. Suddenly, she was in another lifetime, thousands of years before Abby. Catherine was softly whispering, end quotes, I see lots of garlic hanging in an open room. I can smell it. It is believed to kill many evils in the blood and to cleanse the body, but you must take it every day. The garlic is outside too, on top of a garden. Other herbs are there, figs, dates, and other herbs. These plants help you. My mother is buying garlic and the other herbs. Sometimes in the house is sick. What? Somebody in the house is sick, sorry. These are strange roots. Sometimes you just keep them in your mouth or ears or other openings. You just keep them in. In quotes, I see an old man with a beard. He is one of the healers in the village. He tells you what to do. There is some type of plague killing the people. They're not embalming because they're afraid of the disease. People are just buried. The people are unhappy about this. They feel the soul cannot pass on this way, in brackets, contrary to Catherine's after-death reports. But so many have died. The cattle are dying too. Water, floods. People are sick because of the floods. In brackets, she apparently just realized this bit of epidemiology. I also have some disease from the water. It makes your stomach hurt. The disease is of the bowel and stomach. You lose so much water from the body. I'm by the water to bring more back, but that's what is killing us. I bring the water back. I see my mother and brothers. My father has already died. My brothers are very sick, end quote. I paused before progressing her in time. I was fascinated by the way her conceptions of death and the afterlife changed so much from lifetime to lifetime. And yet her experience of death itself was so uniform, so similar every time. A conscious part of her would leave the body around the moment of death, floating above and then being drawn to a wonderful, energizing light. She would then wait for someone to come and help her. The soul automatically passed on. Embalming, burial rituals, or any other procedure after death had nothing to do with it. It was automatic, no preparation necessary, like walking through a just open door. End quote. The land is barren and dry. I see no mountains around here, just land, very flat and dry. One of my brothers has died. I'm feeling better, but the pain is still there, end quote. However, she did not live much longer. Excuse me, end quotes. I'm lying on a pallet with some type of covering, end quote. She was very ill, and no amount of garlic or other herbs could prevent her death. Soon, she was floating above her body, drawn to the familiar light. She waited patiently for someone to come to her. Her head began to roll slowly from side to side as if she were scanning some scene. Her voice was again husky and loud. End quote. They tell me there are many gods, for God is in each of us. End quote. I recognize the voice from the in-between lives state by its huskiness as well as by the decidedly spiritual tone of the message. What she said next left me breathless, pulling the air from my lungs. End quote. Your father is here, and your son, who is a small child. Your father says you will know him because his name is Avrom, A-V-R-O-M, and your daughter is named after him. Also, his death was due to his heart. Your son's heart was also important, for it was backward, like a chicken's. He made a great sacrifice for you out of his love. His soul is very advanced. His death satisfied his parents' debts. Also, he wanted to show you that medicine could only go so far, that its scope is very limited, end quote. Catherine stopped speaking, and I sat in an awed silence as my numbed mind tried to sort things out. The room felt icy cold. Catherine knew very little about my personal life. On my desk, I had a baby picture of my daughter, grinning happily with her 2 bottom baby teeth and an otherwise empty mouth. My son's picture was next to it. Otherwise, Catherine knew virtually nothing about my family or my personal history. I had been well schooled in traditional psychotherapeutic techniques. The therapist was supposed to be a tabula, T-A-B-U-L-A, rasa, R-A-S-A, a blank tablet upon which the patient could project her own feelings, thoughts, and attitudes. These then could be analyzed by the therapist, enlarging the arena of the patient's mind. I had kept this therapeutic distance with Catherine. She really knew me only as a psychiatrist, nothing of my past or of my private life. I had never even displayed my diplomas in the office. The greatest tragedy in my life had been the unexpected death of our firstborn son, Adam, who was only 23 days old when he died early in 1971. About 10 days after we had brought him home from the hospital, he had developed respiratory problems and projectile vomiting. The diagnosis was extremely difficult to make. And quote, total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage with an atrial septal defect, end quote, we were told. End quotes, it occurs once in approximately every 10 million births, end quote. The pulmonary veins, which were supposed to bring oxygenated blood back to the heart, were incorrectly routed, entering the heart on the wrong side. It was as if his heart were turned around, backward. Extremely, extremely rare. Heroic open heart surgery could not save Adam, who died several days later. We mourned for months, our hopes and dreams dashed. Our son Jordan was born a year later, a grateful balm for our wounds. At the time of Adam's death, I had been wavering about my earlier choice of psychiatry as a career. I was enjoying my internship in internal medicine, and I had been offered a residency position in medicine. After Adam's death, I firmly decided that I would make psychiatry my profession. I was angry that modern science, with all of its advanced skill and technology, could not save my son, this simple, tiny baby. My father had been in excellent health until he experienced a massive heart attack early in 1979 at the age of 61. He survived the initial attack, but his heart wall had been irretrievably damaged, and he died 3 days later. This was about 9 months before Catherine's first appointment. My father had been a religious man, more ritualistic than spiritual. His Hebrew name, Avram, suited him better than the English Alvin. 4 months after his death, our daughter Amy was born, and she was named after him. Here in 1982, in my quiet, darkened office, a deafening cascade of hidden secret truths was pouring upon me. I was swimming in a spiritual sea, and I loved the water. My arms were goose flesh. Catherine could not possibly know this information. There was no place even to look it up. My father's Hebrew name, that I had a son who died in infancy from a 1 in 10 million heart defect, my brooding about medicine, my father's death, and my daughter's naming, it was too much, too specific, too true. This unsophisticated laboratory technician was a conduit for transcendental knowledge, and if she could reveal these truths, what else was there? I needed to know more. End quotes. Who? I sputtered. Who is there? Who tells you these things? End quotes. The masters, she whispered. The master spirits tell me. They tell me I have lived 86 times in physical state. And that's end quotes. Catherine's breathing slowed and her head stopped rolling from side to side. She was resting. I wanted to go on, but the implications of what she had said were distracting me. Did she really have 86 previous lifetimes? And what about, in quotes, the masters? Could it be? Could our lives be guided by spirits who have no physical bodies, who seem to possess great knowledge? And are there steps on the way to God? Was this real? I found it difficult to doubt in view of what she had just revealed, yet I struggled to believe. I still struggled to believe. I was overcoming years of alternative programming, but in my head and my heart and my gut, I knew she was right. She was revealing truths. And what about my father and my son? In a sense, they were still alive. They had never really died. They were talking to me years after their burials and proving it by providing specific, very secret information. And since all that was true, was my son as advanced spiritually as Catherine had said? Did he indeed agree to be born to us and then die 23 days later in order to help us with our karmic debts, and in addition to teach me about medicine and humankind, to nudge me back to psychiatry? Don't go hang till we meet again. Love you, mean it.